Thanks for staying with us here on ENCA Lunchtime. The African Diaspora Forum has met with Gauteng Premier David Makhura to raise concerns. It wants to work with the provincial government to deal with crime affecting migrant communities. The ADF says it's been assured that migrant patients in Gauteng will not be denied access to healthcare, amongst other issues. African Diaspora Forum Chairperson Vusimuzi Zibanda joins me now in the studio. Vusimuzi, thank you so much for joining us. I was saying to you when you arrived, it's so good for us to have this conversation now while you're going about your work, and not just when we have another terrible incident of xenophobia, as we have done over the last few years. Now, you've had this meeting with the Gauteng Premier, but I understand this has been an ongoing process of conversation between your organization and the Premier's office. Tell us more about the kinds of conversations and work you've been doing with them.
Thank you very much. The Premier's office, I think, starting from 2014, basically has worked with the African Diaspora Forum during, the Africa Week in May, and to commemorate, Africa Day. So it's been, normally it's done for the whole week, infusing different cultures, cultural practices from various countries. And the Premier's office has been very, very supportive as far as that is concerned. And they've had a few meetings, with the migrant communities, to discuss the problems, that migrants are facing. So you can, this coming at the end of this month, on the 31st of March, we have got the social cohesion games. They're called the Premier Social Cohesion Games.
So tell us about the social cohesion games. What kind of sports do they take part in?
Well, interestingly, this year we're introducing cricket. It's been soccer, but this year it's going to be cricket. So the soccer that we have, we're going to have basically over 35s, especially for the gents. And we're going to have the legends, that come, from across Africa that will play, and the Premier is also going to play. And then we've got the ladies, and then we've got the gogos, the over 60s that are going to be playing as well. And we also have got cricket, where basically the majority of the teams that come from Asia and so forth are going to play in cricket. And I understand we've got a legend also from cricket that's going to be taking part. So the whole idea basically is to bring different communities to come together, enjoy sport, and realize that we've got more in common. We can share good moments and, try to integrate and come together rather than basically fight.
Now, this is the third year you've had these social cohesion games. Tell us a bit about the reaction to these games and how helpful have they been in bridging those gaps?
Well, look, for example, the meeting that we had, I think it was sometime during the course of this past week, we had a lot of, people coming, locals that come, to take part in those games. When you look at the level of enthusiasm, the level of participation, the number of centers that, are being increased so that, you've got more people taking part, you can actually see that there is a lot of enthusiasm. And, these games have actually become so big because we have got others that have already come by the side, like the Simunye games. I'm actually coming from some of the matches that are taking place there. And when you look at the number of people that are involved, the locals and, migrant communities resident in South Africa, it's very, very interesting. It's just beautiful.
And sports is pretty powerful as well, because I know for a fact there are a few cricket players and rugby players in our provincial communities, of kids who've grown up in South Africa as kids of immigrant parents and are now playing for top teams in the highest level. Now, on to on the more serious side of your conversation, I know you've also been in discussion with the Premier's office around the issue of crime. Now, like all South Africans and people living in these communities from other countries, they deal with being victims of crime and also members of those communities being perpetrators of crime. Tell us about how you're addressing that.
Well, look, we actually, discussed this with the Premier because, a lot of people were saying, look, the Premier said that there are some, nationalities that are associated with certain crimes. And we said in that discussion, we wanted to come very clear that, look, when we look at prevalence, for example, to say, look, maybe there are 3 Zimbabweans more or a certain percentage of Zimbabweans found to be performing, or involved in certain crimes, we want to say that Zimbabwean crimes, migrants should not be involved in crime to start with. We are actually saying as migrants that crime is not committed by migrants but by criminals.
Absolutely.
So when crime is committed, we should know that it's not a South African, it's not a migrant, it's a human being who's got a criminal mind. And we want to work, with the provincial government and the national government so that migrant communities, when they've got people that they know that they're criminals, they can tip off the police. When migrants commit crime and they run away to these countries, we want migrant communities to say, we know where this person is coming from the rural areas, and we know who this person is, so that we can work together with Interpol, with the different governments to ensure that people don't come here to South Africa to commit crime and think that they'll run away going back into their countries. And the Premier has promised that, he's going to make sure that, we meet with the provincial leadership of the police so that, we can work out, a method of ensuring that, one, migrants are not involved in crime and they are not targets of criminal activities.
Now, other very important issues for the work that you do would be around health and education. As we said in our introduction, there's been the commitment that no migrant should be turned away from hospitals. And indeed, I suppose in education it's important that parents feel safe to go to a public school and know that they can have the right to enroll their child in school. What are you hearing both on the health side and education?
On the health side, for example, one thing that we're happy to say is that, the Premier said, look, in Gauteng, it's very clear, including, MEC, he says, MEC, is a doctor and she understands exactly the importance of health, that no migrant is going to be turned away from hospital. The issue that, the Premier said that they're doing is that they are billing countries, they are billing provinces. He gave us figures to show that they are billing, various provinces when people from various provinces come to Gauteng, so that those provinces then pay, and, they can deal with that, for example, through the treasury, through the budget allocation, but they're having problems with countries because they don't have, anywhere where they can go to claim that money. But he gave an example of Swaziland, that Swaziland was really cooperating, and that maybe they'll have to deal with the World Health Organization to ensure that payments are made. So the important and what we need to underline is that the Premier says, nobody should be turned away from hospitals. They must receive health care. But over and above that, countries must be held responsible to ensure that the Gauteng province continues its health system, is properly supported, rather than have a situation where these countries, they send, their officials, to Europe and other places when they are sick, rather than send them here to South Africa so that, they can develop the health system. And on the education side as well, he said something quite interesting, that, he is going to organize, a meeting, for example, with the provincial MEC, that is Lesotho, so that we can look at ensuring that all children, migrant children, are also enrolled, in the schools in the province. And we're just waiting. We're hoping that the meeting is going to be taking place this coming week, because there are serious problems in the education department. We have got so many children that have been turned away because they are migrant children, because they don't have, the study permits. The system of study permits is not real permissive. It's actually prohibitive. So these kids cannot really manage to attend school. So, and at a national level, we've got a big crisis, because the minister on the one end doesn't look like, they're budging, they want to take in the migrant kids, and they're saying there are other departments like Home Affairs, safety, that are involved, that must be brought, to the table. But we are basically saying the Department of Education has a policy, and the policy is saying they must exclude, children that do not have documentation, and if they write matric, they don't even give them, their results. So at the end of the day, you've got children going to school for 13 years, after 13 years, they cannot get their matric certificate. So it's like 13 years that has been wasted.
And that starts another vicious cycle.
Exactly.
We're going to have to leave it there for now. Vusimuzi Sibanda, from the chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum, thank you so much for your time, and please do keep us posted on those developments, and good luck with the social cohesion games.